Chapter 10. Miles to Go, 8. We sat in his truck in the parking lot, looking up at the Paradise Visitor Center. It was a huge wooden building with a great slanting roof divided up into parts. Even though winter was long over, there was still some snow in piles around the building. The parking lot was mostly empty. Up here, up near the end of the road, up near the top of the mountain, the wind was a living thing that shook the truck and snuck through the gaps in the door. The rain pelted the roof. Where it stuck on the windshield, I could see it mixed with snow. We sat in a waiting kind of silence. Wesley kept looking at the visitor center and the clouds and the rain and chewing on his lips. He wouldn't look at me. "You ever been to Rainier before?" he asked. "No. I was going to with my grandpa, but..." I trailed off. I sighed, feeling more sad and tired than anything else. He was a big climber, my grandpa. Always said he was going to take me up Rainier when I got better. It was this great secret thing we were going to do together. But just when I got better, he got sick. His kidneys. And he never got better. I blinked, slow and tired, remembering. He was like this big, strong hero, and he just kind of faded away. For months, lying there in the hospital, just getting smaller and grayer and weaker, hooked up to all those tubes. It was like looking at myself, seeing my future. You know what his last words to me were? Wesley shook his head. He said, the day before he died, "I never wanted to die like this." And he made me promise I'd climb Rainier for him. I looked out, up toward where the mountaintop was hiding behind clouds. Of course, he didn't know I was going to get sick again. But a promise is a promise. Another gust shook the truck, reminding us of the cold world outside. "How can I let you do it?" Wesley asked at last, still looking away. "How can I let you go when I know? His voice cut off, and he rubbed his mustache roughly with one hand. I knew it was going to take a lie to get me up there. I swallowed and looked over at him. "I'm not trying for the top, sir. I know there's no way. I'm just going to go up a bit, maybe try to get above the clouds so I can see the top. For my grandpa. Then I'll come right back down and everything will be fine." I patted my backpack. "I've got everything I need. Gear and food and everything. I know what I'm doing." Wesley looked over at me, his eyes pained and his face worried. I didn't like doing this to him. "Please," I said. "I've gotten no choice. For my whole life, no choices. Let me choose this. Let me have this one thing before all my choices get taken away again." "You could go with a guide, though, son. Or I could go with you, or..." "No. I need to do this. I need this to be mine. This one thing." "Son, you could die up there." It's funny. Sitting there in that truck with nothing but the mountain in front of me, I was so scared I could hardly breathe. My stomach was flopping like a fish in a net. But I'd never felt more ready. I'd had enough of everything. That's the truth. "I might die anyway," I said. Bo was sitting up, leaning against me. I dropped my nose down to sniff at his fur. "I didn't get anything else. Let me climb the mountain. It's all I want. Please." Wesley nodded. He was nodding to himself, I think. With his eyes still out the window, he reached out and squeezed my shoulder with a heavy hand. "Go," he said. "Thank you," I answered. "And don't call anyone, okay? I'll be fine. I don't want to be rescued. I don't want search parties. I don't want my mom and dad worried about me being up there. I'll call them from the visitor center when I get back down, and they won't have to worry anymore." Wesley chewed on his lip. "Just a bit, then you come back down." "Yeah," I lied. "Just a bit, then right back down." The door opened with a rusty creak, and the wind scooped in and wrapped its fingers all around me. Bo leaped over my lap to be the first one out. I slid down to the asphalt and was about to close the door when Wesley's voice stopped me. "Son," he called out. I stopped, my hand on the door and frozen rain slapping at my face. "I don't know if I cannot tell. Maybe I can, but I know I cannot tell for at least an hour or two. I know I can give you at least that. Maybe all of it. I don't know." I nodded. It was the best I was going to get, and I knew I was lucky to get it. "All right, thank you." I slammed the door, and without waiting, the truck rolled to a start, moving away from me slow. I could still hear the country music, softly, could still feel the truck's warmth, still smell the hot air and coffee and sandwich and cigar smoke. I knew it might be my last happy place, and I hadn't even been happy. I lifted my camera and snapped a shot of a green truck and white snow and black clouds and the friendly shape of a good man inside and red glowing taillights driving away, leaving me alone. I turned toward the mountain. It still wasn't there. It wouldn't show itself to me, hiding in clouds, waiting for me to come to it. "This is it, Betty," I said. Bo whined and pranced around me. It was freezing. On the other side of the parking lot, just past the visitor center, was a dark little stand of pine trees hunched down in the wind. I walked over into the middle of it with Bo at my heels. "Stay," I told him. Bo cocked his head and looked up at me. "I'll be right back." I put the backpack down and turned and walked away. I knew he'd stay. He was a good dog. The visitor center was huge inside, with high, towering ceilings and great open spaces filled with displays about Mount Rainier. There was a big 3D model of the mountain that you could walk all the way around, and exhibits about the plants and animals that lived there, the information about history and climbing routes. I looked at the model, its black stone faces and great white peaks, and I felt tiny and terrified and alone, alone, alone. With the storm coming, the place was mostly empty. Just a few people here and there, in 2s and 3s and 4s. I recognized some of the people from the shuttle bus and tried to avoid eye contact. I was the only person I saw who was all by himself. Upstairs there was a gift shop. It had books and maps and movies and keychains and snacks. I dug through my pocket and pulled out the last of my money. 9 lousy bucks. The last $9 of my life. I grabbed a couple of Snickers bars, some chocolate-covered peanuts, a bag of trail mix. There were a few families shopping around, the kids excited and noisy, asking their parents to buy stuff. I moved through them quietly, without being noticed. It was like I was already a ghost. I wanted to ask them to buy me a stuffed animal and then go home with them and change my name and live forever. The lady at the register rang up my snacks. $8.50, she said. The lady looked crabby. She was wearing too much makeup. She smelled and she looked at me like she hated me. My headache, always there, scraped its dull teeth against the inside of my skull. She couldn't be the last person I talked to. It couldn't end like that. My heart trembled at how small and lonely it felt. "Is there a payphone?" I asked. My voice was weak, pushing through my pounding head and trembling heart. "Downstairs," she answered. I put one of the candy bars back. "Could I have my change in quarters?" She almost rolled her eyes, but she gave me my quarters. I walked downstairs. The phone was in a dark little hallway that led to the bathrooms. There was no one around. My hands shaking, and the quarters squeezed in my fist were wet with sweat. I fed the quarters in one by one. I felt almost too shaky to stand. My head was one big pounding ache. I screwed my eyes shut, trying to remember the number. I only had one shot. I needed to get it right. I pressed the numbers, one after another. The buttons were metal and worn smooth by thousands of fingers. When the last number pushed, I pressed the phone to my ear and leaned forward against the booth and closed my eyes. My ear reached out hundreds of miles through the hissing static. The phone rang.